Picture this, October 13th, 1972. A small chartered plane takes off from Uruguay, carrying a team of young rugby players, their friends, and family. They're heading to Chile for a match, full of excitement and laughter. The sky is clear, spirits are high, but in a horrifying twist of fate, this journey to a friendly game would turn into one of the most harrowing survival stories ever told. What would you do if you were stranded in the middle of nowhere, with no food, no hope, and freezing temperatures? How far would you go to live? The plane was a Fairchild F-227, carrying 45 people. As it flew over the treacherous Andes Mountains, the pilots made a fatal error. Believing they had already crossed the main ridge, they began their descent. Suddenly, the plane was enveloped in thick clouds. An alarm blared through the cockpit. They were flying straight into a mountain. The impact was catastrophic. The wings and tail were ripped from the fuselage, and the main body of the plane skidded down a snowy glacier at an incredible speed before finally coming to a stop. Silence. Then screams. In the initial crash, 12 people died instantly. The survivors, many of them injured, found themselves in a frozen wasteland, over 11,000 feet above sea level. The white, endless expanse of snow was all they could see. They were dressed for a spring day in Chile, not for the brutal, sub-zero temperatures of the Andes. Their supplies were meager: a few chocolate bars, some snacks, and a handful of wine bottles. They huddled together inside the broken fuselage, using seat cushions to block the gaping holes, trying to stay warm against the biting wind. Days turned into a week. They listened to a small transistor radio, their only link to the outside world. They prayed for rescue, but then the most crushing news came crackling through the static. The search had been called off. The world had given them up for dead. Imagine the despair, the utter hopelessness that washed over them. They were alone. No one was coming. As their meager food supply dwindled to nothing, they faced a grim reality. Their bodies were wasting away from starvation. The cold was relentless. They were surrounded by the bodies of their friends and teammates, preserved in the snow. It was then that they were forced to confront an unthinkable choice, a taboo that society shuns. To survive, they would have to eat the flesh of the deceased. This decision was not made lightly. It was born from days of agonizing debate, prayer, and desperation. Nando Parrado, who had lost his own mother and sister in the crash, was one of the first to argue for it. He reasoned that their friends would have wanted them to live, to use their bodies so that their own sacrifice was not in vain. Some initially refused, unable to cross that moral line. But as hunger gnawed at them, one by one, they realized it was the only way. It was a pact for survival, a solemn promise to do whatever it took to see their families again. But their ordeal was far from over. On the 17th day, disaster struck again. An avalanche buried the fuselage while they slept, killing 8 more people. For 3 days, the remaining survivors were trapped in the dark, cramped space with the newly deceased, slowly digging their way out. It was a living tomb. The avalanche, however, had one cruel silver lining. It insulated the fuselage, making it slightly warmer, but the psychological toll was immense. After 2 months in the mountains, it was clear that staying put meant certain death. They had to find help themselves. They needed to cross the Andes. 2 of the strongest survivors, Nando Parrado and Roberto Canessa, were chosen for the impossible mission. They had no climbing gear, no proper clothing, only a makeshift sleeping bag sewn from airplane insulation. They were weak from starvation, but fueled by a desperate will to live. They began their trek, believing Chile was just over the next mountain. But as they reached the summit after a grueling 3-day climb, their hearts sank. Instead of green valleys, all they saw were more snow-capped peaks, stretching to the horizon. It was a moment of utter devastation. Canessa wanted to turn back, but Parrado refused. "We may be walking to our deaths," he said, "but I'm going to walk toward the west. I'm going to die walking." For 10 days, they walked. They battled exhaustion, frostbite, and altitude sickness. They climbed mountains and crossed frozen rivers. Their bodies were failing, but their spirits held on. Finally, after 10 brutal days, they saw a sign of life, a cow. Then, across a river, they spotted a man on horseback, a Chilean farmer named Sergio Cattle N. They were too weak to shout across the roaring water. Nando threw a rock with a note tied to it across the river. The note read, "I come from a plane that fell in the mountains. I am Uruguayan. We have been walking for 10 days. In the plane, there are still 14 injured people. We have to get out of here quickly, and we don't know how. We have no food. We are weak. When are you going to come and fetch us? Please, we can't even walk. Where are we?" The farmer read the note and understood. Help was finally on its way. The next day, rescue helicopters airlifted Nando and then returned for the others still waiting at the crash site. After 72 days stranded in the Andes, 16 survivors were saved. Their reunion with their families was a scene of unbelievable emotion and relief. The story of the miracle of the Andes is more than just a tale of survival. It's a profound testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of hope, and the incredible lengths people will go to for one another. It forces us to ask ourselves what we are truly capable of when pushed to the absolute limit. Their story isn't just about what they did to survive, but why they chose to live. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as incredible as I did, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more unbelievable true stories. See you next time.